As small luxury crossovers continue to grow in popularity here in America, the competition between the manufacturers is growing even more fierce. So today I brought two of the best-selling vehicles in the segment. On my right, the 2018 Lexus NX 300 F-Sport, and then of course on my left, the all-new 2018 Acura RDX A-Spec. However, the big question is, if you guys have about $45,000 to spend, which one of these two crossovers is the better buy? That's what we're here to find out. So in the small luxury class, the Lexus was technically a late player. If you guys remember correctly, this was first introduced in the US back in 2015, and Lexus kind of gave it a pretty extensive overhaul in 2018 where they freshened the front end, they did some updates to the interior. And this particular one here is the NX 300. As you guys know, it's also been renamed for 2018. This was known as the NX 200T before, but Lexus is kind of going away from the actual nomenclature meaning something, whereas before it had to do with engine displacement. Now, being the F-Sport model, this is the sport package from Lexus, so you do get unique touches to the front end. You have their corporate spindle grille with the intricate L's that create a mesh finish. You have a more aggressive front fascia with this kind of faux lower air intake right here with the parking sensors integrated. My tester has the premium triple beam LED headlights for a $1,500 option. And then of course Lexus kind of goes all crazy with their fishhook style LEDs, which are separated from the actual headlight assembly. I believe Lexus is going to try to start going away from that. Overall, I think the NX's design is very polarizing. It still hasn't really grown on me, and I don't think it'll continue to age well when you start looking at the actual design of the car. Now, in contrast, moving over to the RDX, it's got Acura's new corporate design language with their new diamond pentagon face. It's got standard jewel eye LED headlights. These are full LEDs as well, just like the Lexus, although the Lexus has an upgraded LED. Acura also gives you LED fog lights down here at the bottom, and then you also have a lot of intakes and scoops, which are actual functional. These are functionally to cool the wheels, create a wheel skirt over the front wheels, and then you have black accents in here in the grille, the huge Acura emblem at the front, which also houses the radar sensor for the adaptive cruise control. And you can really see just how much wider the front end is on the Acura, or at least how much wider the vehicle is with this bigger grille. Overall, I mean, design is always kind of a personal taste thing, but I definitely prefer the look of the Acura in the front end. So looking at the side profile of the NX, because this is the F-Sport model, you do get the company's 18-inch wheels with kind of a black machine finish riding on 225/60 series tires. These are actually kind of not very low profile for an F-Sport package. Another indication this is an F-Sport, there'll be a small badge here, and then Lexus kind of gives you these little blacked out fender treatments here that go along the side of the profile of the vehicle. Now the NX is actually a little bit smaller than most of the competition. Its wheelbase at 104.7 inches and 182.3 inches overall makes it about 4 inches shorter than the RDX, but you definitely see a lot of nice design touches here, a lot of these creases here to kind of give this vehicle a little bit more of a sportier look. And then when you come to the rear of the NX, Lexus here you can see also slightly updated the rear taillights. You have full LED taillights at the back. You have an NX 300 badge, and then Lexus kind of integrates the exhaust tips into the lower bumper, and then they give you another F-Sport badge at the back. Now, both vehicles also have a power tailgate. When you open up the rear end of the Lexus, this is kind of where the NX really falls short. Its cargo capacity here measures only 17.7 cubic feet of space. That's roughly half what Acura gives you in the RDX. Underneath here, you also have a little bit of storage, but Lexus gives you a temporary spare underneath here. Now, when you fold down the rear seats, you get about 54.5 cubic feet of space, which is again a lot less than the Acura. So let's take a look and see what the design looks like for that vehicle. So looking at the side profile of the new RDX, you can immediately notice just how much bigger, longer, and wider and taller this vehicle is over the NX. It actually almost looks like a class above it because it's so much bigger. Now this one is the A-Spec model. You can distinguish it, of course, from not only the A-Spec badge on the side, you also get these A-Spec specific wheels. These are the 20-inch shark gray finish wheels wrapped in really fat tires. These are two 55/45 series tires, which are 30 millimeters wider than the NX. So I'm really glad that Acura put a nice, good set of rubber on this car. Now, at a wheelbase of around 108 inches long and an overall length of 187 inches long, this is bigger than the old RDX by about 3.5 inches and 4 inches bigger than the NX. Now, one thing about the RDX, you can see here, it's got that kind of floating roof design here with the A-Spec model with the black finish here. That can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. It kind of reminds me a little bit of some Nissan products. Nissan was kind of the first one to introduce that on the Murano. Now at the back of the RDX, you can see another new design language here. Acura calls this their Dragon Tail tail lights with the LED combination tail lights. The turn signals are actually an incandescent bulb versus LED for the brake light and the reverse light. And then of course with the A-spec model, you got fat exhaust tips, which are actually connected to the muffler. So Acura is kind of going away from hiding the exhaust tips they did in the past. Now, this has a power tailgate as well. It's not the hands-free power tailgate like on the Lexus. You have to go to the advanced model to get that, but you can see here the huge difference in the cargo capacity. You're looking at around 31.5 cubic feet of space with the seats up. Underneath here, Acura has given you a huge amount of under-seat storage, which is definitely great. It actually adds like another 10 cubic feet of space underneath here, which is great. And then the spare tire will live underneath the actual bumper part. Now, if you fold down the second row seats, Acura says it gives you around 79 cubic feet of space, but I think they're kind of including the space underneath here. That makes it basically almost twice of what you're gonna get in most competitors, and about the same what you're gonna get from a lot of the mainstream competition. So stepping into the interior of the Lexus, I'm gonna start with this one first because it's a little bit more familiar. Now, first of all, it does come standard with the company's smart key access system. We've seen this key fob before. To start it up, just like every other car, put your foot on the brake, push the button here, it fires right up. Now, it's pretty scorching hot out here today, so I'm gonna try to turn up the AC because, as you guys can see, I'm a little sweaty. But looking at the interior here, you can see Lexus made some updates to this car for 2018, starting with the screen. The screen's probably the biggest thing you're going to notice first. It's a bigger 10.3-inch display. This is their Lexus Inform system with the remote touchpad interface. This has been getting so much crap in the industry as being one of the worst infotainment systems in the business. Now, I definitely have started to get used to it, but let's move away from that for really quick. I want to talk about the materials. Now, Lexus typically has really high-quality materials in their interior, and the NX definitely follows in that tradition. You can see there's lots of soft stitching here on this part of the dash, which is real leather. It's faux over here, but it's also soft touch over the instrument panel hood. On the door panels, it's that same faux stitching with that aluminum trim because this is the F-Sport model. And then of course the windows are one touch for all four. They feel nice and satisfying, the switches do, which is definitely nice. You kind of expect that in a luxury brand. A couple of things I'm noticing about the Lexus: it has a power tilt and telescoping steering column, which is nice. The steering wheel itself is also heated. The seats are heated and cooled, and they're really comfortable. The F-Sport model has really supportive seats that kind of hug you, which is definitely nice. Now, over here on the center stack, this vehicle definitely feels a little bit more narrow. You can see here the buttons are clustered very closely together. You have these really nice looking toggles, which feel also really high quality. Lexus also kind of gives you more traditional knobs down here for tuning, and then for volume, your drive mode selector is here. The gauges in this car are probably the most dated looking element for me. I just think that Lexus needs to kind of go away from this. The screen in the center is a little bit too small. It's like a 3-inch display. They've got a better looking F-Sport display in the new ES, but I just really want to see Lexus kind of go an all LCD with like a big like 12-inch display like some competitors. Now, when you put the vehicle into reverse, Lexus also gives you a backup camera here with parking sensors front and rear. The camera quality, it's a little bit crunchy. It's kind of what I expect from a Toyota. I expect a little bit more from a Lexus. You got this traditional gear shifter here with your drive mode selector, so that's nice. Electronic parking brake. Now, I'm not going to go too much in depth with this, but you can see here it's basically the same Lexus remote touchpad interface. You've got like a menu button here that shows your different sources. No Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto is included, like the new ES that I've shown you guys. Lexus is still kind of running the older system in this, but you know what? It has the haptic feedback. The touchpad here actually feels pretty smooth and nice. It has a pretty decent, satisfying click when you use it. And it's also a pretty good size. It's just not very easy to navigate while you're driving because, you know, you have to kind of look at the display here, and then you have to scroll like a computer and actually select what you want, which is very distracting when you're driving. Acura says they have a better solution in the new RDX, which I'll get into in a second. Over here, it's got a nice soft pad here where you're going to rest your hand or your hand when you're using the touchpad. You've got cup holders here. You've got a nice big center console right here with some good storage. And then surprisingly, Lexus gives you a little mirror right here, I guess, to do your makeup. Maybe they suspect a lot of owners of this car are female, which is interesting. But I mean, overall, this interior feels very cozy, but it's also pretty usable. It's definitely a little bit more tight. And if you like that, you're going to like the interior. But let's get into the Acura and see how that compares to the Lexus. So stepping into the interior of the new RDX, you're going to immediately notice that this car feels a lot more spacious than the Lexus, and because the car is a lot wider, you feel that airiness when you get into this cabin. Now to start the vehicle up, here's the current key fob that you see that I've shown you on other Acura products. No remote start on the key fob. You have to go to the advanced trim to get the remote start, but I think Acura includes that with the Acura Link system. But to start it up, put your foot on the brake, push the button, it starts up like every other car. Now, looking at the rest of this interior, you can tell Acura really has made a lot of efforts to make this interior feel a lot more luxurious and kind of differentiate themselves from their corporate Honda twin. The materials in here are also pretty good. Is it better than the Lexus? That's really up to you to decide, but you can see the dashboard is all soft touch right here. There's some suede Alcantara stitching. There's some aluminum look trim here that the A-Spec model gives you, although the advanced trim gives you some real wood with the matte finish, which I think I actually prefer that. It's soft touch here on this portion. On the door panel here, it's also soft touch, but it feels kind of similar to what I'll find in like a Honda product. There's some nice stitching here with contrasting leather. The window switches feel nice and satisfying. They're also express up and down for all four, just like the Lexus. There's no power folding mirrors on this trim. I believe the advanced model gives that to you, whereas the Lexus already included that. And then the steering wheel here doesn't tilt and telescope with power. It's actually a manual, which is surprising. I kind of expected Acura to give us at least a power function. The steering wheel itself is a new steering wheel design. Kind of reminds me something what I've seen like on the NSX. Lots of buttons here, of course, but one button that Acura did forget is a phone answer button. I actually got a phone call earlier today and I was looking for the pickup button here for your phone and I couldn't find it. So if you guys happen to know where that is, feel free to leave that in the comments below. Now the gauges in this car also remind me a lot of what I used to find in the old Acura RSX Type S when I was in high school with the red display. These are unique to the A-Spec model. You have a big 7-inch display here that shows all your kinds of information with your super handling all-wheel drive. So this looks more modern than what you find in the Lexus, although I will say that the German competitors offer a full LCD display, which Acura still doesn't do yet. Over here on the center stack, you can see a pretty good amount of buttons, but Acura has them pretty well labeled. You have a volume knob here, a tuning button here, so no knob. I kind of just wish Acura gave us a knob there. You have your dual zone climate control here. You have heated and cooled seats, just like the Lexus that you get on this A-Spec trim. And then unlike the Lexus, you have a very different transmission design with the push button selector here. You've seen this before on other Honda products. When you put the vehicle to reverse, the backup camera resolution is way better than what you get in the Lexus. This is upgraded from what you get in Honda products. If you want a 360 camera, you have to go to the advanced trim, as this one only has the front and rear sensors, but you can see the camera display is very good. Over here, this is your drive mode selector. Just like in the Lexus, you have this gigantic switch here that allows you to go between Sport Plus, Sport, a Comfort, and a Snow mode. The graphics even look a lot better. So Acura is really stepping up their game in terms of the infotainment system. This is something they truly needed. Now let's talk a little bit about here the true touchpad controller. Our touchpad here, because this looks very similar to what you find in the Lexus. And before you think, oh my God, Acura just copied Lexus and their awful system, Acura did their research and they've addressed the one issue that the Lexus has. It has one-to-one positioning. So that basically means if I was trying to touch that portion of the screen here, I can just kind of go to the touchpad and just touch this bottom portion here, and it takes me to that area. I don't have to like scroll around like you would on the Lexus, like a mouse pad, like on a computer. So that makes it so when you're driving, you can actually kind of just go by feel, as opposed to having to actually look at this and then scroll in there. It just requires too much attention to take off your eyes off the road. This screen here also shows different information. Lexus or Acura kind of allows you to flip-flop the two screens by pushing the button right there. If you guys want to do so, you can put the nav display there, or you can put the audio display. They don't allow you to kind of combine the two screens like Lexus does, but I kind of like how they keep it separate, which kind of makes it a little bit easier to use. There's also a home display here that shows all your different icons. You can kind of rearrange the icons just like on your phone. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is also included, although the Android Auto software hasn't been loaded onto this particular car yet because it's an early production model. The dealer will be able to add that at a later date. And the one thing about this car that I'm noticing is it just has a lot more storage space. There's a big wide center console here, a nice storage cubby right here, which is nice. There's a nice lid that closes here. There's more storage down here, so many USB ports. It's got a really killer sound system as well. There's 16 speakers in here with speakers in the roof for this car. It's the ELS Studio 3D. It sounds way better than what you get in the Lexus product, so it kind of elevates the premium quality. I like the seats as well. The red leather in this car looks better than the red leather that Lexus offers, and the seats themselves feel a little bit more comfortable for me. They're a little bit softer. They also equally hug you, but I mean overall, the overall experience in this car to me feels a little bit more premium, and it has a much better infotainment system. So that's kind of where this car is the clear winner in my opinion. So these crossovers are continuing to replace mid-size sedans as the family car of choice. So the back seat is a very important place to consider. And with the new RDX, this is where Acura definitely has the edge. They quote around 38 inches of legroom back here, which is about 2 more than what you get in the Lexus. And you can see here, the space is nice. I love the red leather, although Lexus also does offer the red leather as well. And you can see here in terms of features, panoramic sunroof, as I said, is standard equipment, so it lets in a lot of light. You have rear seat vents, you have 2 USB ports, and then there is an armrest here that comes and folds down that gives you 2 cup holders as well. One thing though, the seat back doesn't recline like in some competitors, and if you want heated rear seats, you have to go for the advanced trim, which is like another couple $1,000s. So in contrast to the Acura, the back seat of the Lexus also isn't too bad, although when you get back here, you can instantly feel it's definitely not quite as roomy and it's not as wide and as airy as the Acura. Now, Lexus quotes around 36 inches of legroom here, and it also has a nice flat floor, just like the Acura, so you can squeeze a middle passenger back here. Now, one thing that Lexus does have an advantage of is the rear seat actually reclines. It gives you multiple angles of recline, which is definitely a nice feature. I'm surprised Acura didn't include that, but no pano sunroof is available on this car, so it's a little bit more dark. You do have a nice little armrest here that folds down and gives you some cup holders, and then Lexus gives you 2 rear seat vents back here, but no USB, no power outlets here, and then no heated rear seats. So it's definitely a couple of features in the Lexus that are also missing that you can get in some of the competition. So under the hood of these two crossovers, they actually couldn't be more similar, and there was a time where if you looked at the old RDX, it was very different. But for this all-new generation, Acura has replaced the old 3.5-liter V6. They've gone back to a turbo 4-cylinder just like the first generation. This is the same 2-liter turbo that we find in the Honda Civic Type R and the Accord. It's been tuned differently in the Acura to make 272 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. Now, those numbers are actually a little bit less in terms of horsepower than the V6, but you get a lot more torque. It also goes out through a new 10-speed automatic transmission, which is a segment first in the compact SUV segment. And then, of course, with this generation, Acura said the weight has gone up a little bit. This one, as it sits, weighs around 4,000 pounds, which is a little bit porky, but the fuel economy has also been improved to 21 in the city and 26 on the highway. Premium gas is recommended. We'll go out on the road and we'll see how this one performs, but let's take a look and see what the Lexus has to offer. So in contrast to the Acura, the Lexus also fights back with a 2-liter turbocharged direct injection 4-cylinder. This engine we've known for a few years now. It was introduced in the NX, and it makes 235 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. That's like almost a 40 horsepower deficit over the Acura, so that's a pretty big difference. Now, I know what you're thinking. The Lexus is a lot smaller, so maybe it's lighter. Unfortunately, no, it still weighs around 4,000 pounds, and it goes out through a 6-speed automatic transmission, so nearly half the gears as what Acura gives you. Now, surprisingly, despite the fact that this has only 6 gears, the Lexus gets better gas mileage. This one's rated at 22 in the city, 27 on the highway. I think it's partly due to the 20-inch wheels on the Acura kind of lowering the fuel economy. This one is, again, available in either front or all-wheel drive, just like the Acura. This one here is all-wheel drive, so let's get out on the road and see how the Lexus and the Acura performs. So let's start off in the Acura first. This car has the new 2-liter turbo from the Accord, a new 10-speed transmission. Let's floor it and see how she feels. Little laggy off the line, but whoa! The engine in this car is super responsive. It's a little soft initially, but really once the turbo kicks in, you can feel the VTEC kick in. This car reminds me a lot of the motor that we know and love in the Civic Type R. Now, Acura says with this new powertrain combination, the 0 to 60 time is a half-second improvement. So theoretically, this means it's got a 0 to 60 time of 6 seconds versus 6.5. But what you feel immediately is the instant torque of this car. It's got a fat, meaty torque curve. And the 10-speed automatic, when you have it in its sport mode, it really bangs off some pretty quick shifts in this car. It's really impressive. It's got these paddle shifters in this car, which are metal, and they respond pretty well. When you start using the paddles, you can feel, they will downshift, rev match for you. They'll shift pretty quick when you upshift. And really the handling of this car is surprising. The old RDX, they went so soft with that one, and this one has really returned to the first generation with how smooth it is, with how sporty it feels. Which is, I think, a step in the right direction. But unlike the first generation, this car feels very, very, refined. The old one kind of was a little rough around the engines, around the edges. The turbo lag was incessant. The 5-speed automatic was behind the times. It was a thirsty engine, which we'll talk a little bit about the fuel economy in a second. But this car corners flatly. It has great steering. It's really quick, responsive steering. The body feels relatively flat. And this car, keep in mind, does not have the adaptive dampers that you get with the advanced trim. I would highly recommend going for that. I'm really annoyed that Acura didn't include the adaptive dampers for the A-Spec model. Now, with 20-inch wheels, the turning radius is definitely affected in this car, so it's definitely a con. We'll have to get into the Lexus and try this exact move and see if that's a little bit better. Now, Acura has brought back super handling all-wheel drive in this car, which means it's able to torque vector. It's basically able to send more power to the inside rear wheel when you're in a turn, when you floor it, so let's see if that actually helps. God. Now, it's got a really interesting display here that shows you where the torque is going, and you really feel the all-wheel drive system kind of push you around the corner. I know most owners are probably not going to do that, but it's just really cool that you can. And this car is really quick, honestly. It'll surprise a lot of you. It's got plenty of power for a base engine, and I'm really hoping Acura eventually goes to a Type S model that gives you a little more power, like I'm thinking a boosted 6. But you can see here the transmission will rev match for you in Sport Plus. And if you guys, are just kind of going to drive this normally like any other, compact luxury SUV, this thing rides really nicely in comfort mode. It quiets down. Acura's done a really good job with addressing the road noise that the old models have had. It's also very smooth. The engine itself also has kind of like a sound imposer that kind of amplifies the noise from the speakers. That is turned off when you have it in its comfort mode. So this car, again, goes back to being a luxury SUV when you want it to, which is very important. It's got that dual mode personality, but unlike the old model, it can really have some fun when you guys are looking to attack your favorite back road and you put it into Sport Plus mode. Would love to see Acura eventually offer a Type S, a hotter version. Now, let's talk a little about the fuel economy, because this is technically rated lower than the Lexus. And this car has been averaging around 18 miles per gallon in my week's worth of testing and mostly city driving. Now on the highway, I did push it up to about 27, 28 miles per gallon, so a little bit better than the EPA ratings. This car also only recommends premium versus the Lexus, which actually requires it, which is definitely an interesting contrast between the two. But I mean, overall, you're going to get into the interior of this car. The visibility is good, aside from the strange hump for the hood you have to kind of get used to. The seats are comfortable, it rides nice, but it's sporty when you want it to be. But I haven't driven an NX in a while, so let's hop into the Lexus NX and see in contrast how it feels to the new RDX. So it's been a while since I drove a Lexus NX. The last one I drove was probably like 3 years ago when this car first came out. So with a couple of tweaks here, let's get into this new refreshed NX and see how it feels after just hopping out of the Acura. So immediately right off the bat, I can easily feel that this car feels a lot more sluggish versus the engine and powertrain in the new RDX. The 2-liter turbo in this car just doesn't want to rev up as quick. It doesn't feel quite as responsive. The 6-speed automatic also is much more relaxed. I mean, this car is definitely the more relaxed driving car. Everything about it just feels like it's been tailor-backed for comfort, even though this is the F-Sport model. I have it now in its sport setting here. The steering in this car definitely feels heavy, although it feels artificially heavy. The body definitely leans a lot more. The visibility in here also isn't quite as good. You have these big A-pillars here. The dash kind of gives you an interesting view. It feels a lot more narrower. And then when you put your foot down here, Lexus is also kind of amplifying the noise, but the engine itself just doesn't sound all that pleasant. The Acura's amplification of the noise sounds a little bit better, even though it's fake. It just sounds like a better fake generated noise, and that's okay with me. Now, I mean, this car is definitely not slow. 0 to 60 time probably feels like it's around 7 seconds, which is decent, although, again, competition has surpassed this, where it's at least a second quicker. So I think the transmission's holding it back. The engine itself doesn't feel like it has 235 horsepower. It definitely feels a little bit light on power, and it's definitely something that Lexus needs to address for the next generation. Now, because this car has smaller wheels and tires, the turning radius is better than the Acura's, so I don't have to necessarily do a 3-point turn, although it's not amazing. It is slightly better than the Acura because of the smaller 18-inch wheels. So this car's all-wheel drive system also has dynamic torque vectoring. It's not quite as good as Acura's super handling all-wheel drive system, but you know what? It's not bad. And although this car's transmission is getting old, it does have really smooth shifts. They're just not very quick. The paddles in this car, they work surprisingly well also. It actually will downshift rev match for you there. Very slow to upshift though. As soon as I blip the paddle, I can literally count like 0.1, it's like a 0.1 second delay. So that's a little bit frustrating. Most owners are probably not going to use that. Now, when you put the vehicle into its basically normal mode here and just cruise, let's see how this car feels as a luxury car. Now, the ride quality in the Lexus definitely feels a little bit softer because of the smaller diameter 18-inch wheels. In terms of the quietness, it's really hard to tell. I would need like some kind of sound machine. The two cars are both equally quiet. There was a time where Lexus was easily the quieter choice, but the Acura also has really stepped up their game. They both feel like luxury sedans when you start, driving the two like luxury sedans. I do notice that I sit up a little bit higher in the Lexus versus the Acura. which some of you may prefer. This car just in general doesn't feel as sporty and as focused and as sharp as the Acura. And you know, that may be a thing that you guys are looking for. This, to me, feels a little bit cozier. I prefer the open and airy feel of the Acura's cabin and the better visibility. But you know, in terms of the driver assistance tech, this car also comes standard with the Lexus Safety System Plus, just like Acura Watch's standard. The Acura system is a little bit better in its lane keep assist. This is not the newest Lexus Safety System Plus with the lane trace assist control. So again, this car reminds you that it's a little bit of an older design as opposed to what you get in the actual new Acura Watch system. But I mean, overall, the Lexus is definitely not a bad choice. It's just definitely not the the newest offering. You're going to feel that when you first start driving this car. Now, what about the gas mileage? This car is technically rated a little bit better in terms of fuel economy versus the Acura, and I've been averaging around 18 miles per gallon as well in the city. Which didn't surprise me. On the highway, I got it up to about 24, 25 miles per gallon. So it's a little bit lower than the EPA's rating. Because of that 6-speed auto, it's technically revving a little bit higher versus what you get in the Acura. So again, that's something to consider. This car also, remember, requires premium gas. So if that's something that you guys would prefer to put regular, you can do that in the Acura because it's only recommended to use the premium gas. So if you're looking for proof that Americans have dumped sedans for crossovers, just check out the sales figures of these two cars. Between the two, they do a little over 100,000 units annually, with Lexus doing about 60,000 of these in 2017, Acura moving around 51,000 RDX models. Now, with this all-new version out, I wouldn't be surprised to see the sales figures kind of flip-flop. As you guys saw from the whole video, the Acura is just kind of the more superior vehicle. It has more interior space, it drives better, it's got better tech, and even though its fuel economy is a little bit lower than the Lexus, it's kind of a negligible amount. This car in general will kind of just appeal to more people for having more space, which is definitely very important here in the American market. But if you don't care about what I think, what's it going to cost to put one of these in your driveway? And the Lexus is not a bad car as well. This car starts at $36,200 versus the RDX, which starts at $37,300. So this is actually cheaper to start, which may be, a deciding factor for you guys. However, both of these cars are not base models. This A-spec model with all-wheel drive is stickering for around $46,500, which is definitely a huge jump, although Acura kind of makes it easy for you by picking a trim, adding everything. I will say that if you want the advanced trim that has all those features that I mentioned before, it's going to cost you around $48,000. In contrast with the Lexus, this car with the F-Sport package is around $38,000, so a little bit cheaper than the Acura, but Lexus makes you buy options from the navigation, Mark Levinson audio, to the upgraded headlights. This one here stickers for a little over $48,000, and if you're not careful, this can be easily $50,000 when you include basically all the options, although there are a couple of features that the Lexus offers that the Acura doesn't, so it's kind of like deciding on between the two is just basically if you like the space and the newer design of the Acura, pick that, but if you prefer the look and design of the Lexus and don't care for some of the tech, pick this one. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my full comparison test on the 2018 Lexus NX F-Sport and the 2019 Acura RDX A-Spec. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video. Please go left. Please go left, but you're probably going to go straight and you're going to go to the park. Thanks, lady. Thanks for going so slow, Mazda.